What a great film. Thank you guys, first of all, for the music for all these years. Thank you for the music. So there were so many musicians that you guys have worked with. Can you talk, Denny, about how you chose the ones you chose to profile for the film?
I'm sorry, me?
Yeah,
yes. Oh, well. I mean, how this came to me, Greg and Jack, my producers, brought this project to me, and it was, if anybody remember the Wrecking Crew, it basically jumps off the Wrecking Crew as my father. I said it at the beginning, the story of my father and his extended family, the Wrecking Crew. So when it was Lisa Roy, who's unfortunately passed away, she was the catalyst to this. She was our publicist. She was Danny's girlfriend. It was her idea all the way. And she said it to Greg and said, what do you think about this idea of going with this idea of media family? And we're like, that made so much sense. And so having these guys together as a family, it was perfect because any one of these guys could have their own documentary. There's so many guys in LA. There's the Picard brothers, Keltners, there's Abel Boreal, there's all these other folks, but this had the hook to it. And that was the big difference. So it made sense.
Someone said early in the movie that they didn't want to go solo. It was too lonely and too much work. Do you guys still feel that way?
Well, we like being in a band. That's the whole deal. We're musicians that love to play together. The ensemble is what we live for. So that's pretty much how it ended up, of course.
Yeah, it's like James said it in the movie. James Taylor is this frontman, exceptional frontman, but he said, I don't feel like a frontman, I feel like I'm part of a band, and that's always been the driving force to be part of a great band for all of us.
Do you have any upcoming gigs?
Yeah, actually this weekend we have three in a row. We hope we can stay on our feet for 3 shows in a row.
It's going to be a good test, yeah.
The film was highly entertaining. Are there any anecdotes that, I'm sure there are, but that you had recorded, Denny, that you ultimately didn't put in the film?
Oh boy. Yeah. A lot of anecdotes. The greatest thing is the outtakes. And it's been so much fun reliving those and going back because we do it to promote the film. There's only so much we can put in a 95-minute, 100-minute film. And directions go in a different way. Once COVID really guided us in a different way. I was always calling it Media Family and Friends in my head. And we were going to take it, highlight other folks. But once COVID came in, it was like, we brought it back down to, earth, and just focused us. So it made it, in a weird way, COVID helped it, but we also had all the artists done by then, pretty much done. And then the guys, we went back out and started interviewing the guys slowly. But there's so much stuff that if you go to the website, you'll see all those anecdotes.
Oh, you have outtakes on the...
Yeah.
Okay, we want one, though. I'm sure Waddy has one.
I think, the one I like of Waddy is when he's basically Lonely Boy solo. And you want to tell the story? You tell it.
What Denny's talking about is Andrew Gold wrote that great song, and we were on the road with Linda. And anyway, we recorded the record, and what you hear is the live performance that we did in the studio, and the solo on it is my solo. And one night after working in town, I was on my way home, wanted to get some cigarettes. I stopped into a 7-Eleven, and I reached in my pocket. I didn't have a dollar on me. I had nothing, like as usual, no money. And Lonely Boy was playing on the radio. And I thought that was incongruous enough, but I'm looking at the guy behind the register. I'm going, gee, I wonder if I tell this guy that's me playing that guitar, give me a cigarette or something, And I went, no, I just left. But it's a strange feeling it was. Very odd.
That's the one I meant, yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions.
It's an open G tuning. He didn't have the low string on his guitar. It was at his house, and it was when I first met him. And we spent a couple days together, just sitting in his house, listening to records and listening to music and talking about music. And I noticed this guitar sitting on a stand that didn't have a low string on it. I said, "What's the matter with that guitar? You don't like that one?" And he goes, "No, man, that's my bit." And I went, "Your bit? What are you talking about? What do you mean? What's your bit?" And he goes, "No, I take the low string off and put it in this tuning, this open G tuning, and that's how I do these, the stuff." And I went, is that why it never sounds right when I'm trying to do it?" And I was serious, because anybody who studies, Stone's music, you're trying to make it sound the same, and it just never did. And it's because of that tuning. There's this one string sitting on top of everything that rings a certain way. But he takes the low string off, so the fifth string is the root of the chord. So that's the name of that tune.
These are the only Lee could talk about. He's the only one that actually worked with Dad.
I loved his dad so much. I mean, I when he did the Tommy was whenever I did a session and I walked in and I saw Tommy there, I knew I was in for an incredible day. He did all kinds of things. Some people know about it. I have one of my basses. I have a thing on it called my producer switch, and it was all because of Tommy. Where we were doing a show at Universal, like Knight Rider or one of those TV shows. And there were baffles in front of all of us where you looked kind of like Kilroy. It would come up to about here, so you'd only see the top half of everybody's head behind these sound baffles. And the arranger was across the room conducting, and he said, "Tommy, could you play mandolin on this one?" So Tommy bends down, out of sight, picks up his mandolin, starts playing. Goes, "No, that's not it." And he goes through about a half a dozen instruments, and Tommy keeps bending over and I'm shitting my pants. I'm sitting next to him. I'm almost crying. I'm laughing so hard because he only had his guitar with him, so he just kept bending over and sitting back up, but playing in different positions. So it sounded different every time And so I just watched him, and I said, in 5 minutes, I just learned more about how this business works than all my education. So I went home and I drilled a hole in one of my basses and put a switch in it that had no wires or anything going to it. But when I would get asked by a producer who really didn't know music, can you make it shimmer more, more mauve? I would immediately make sure he could see me flip the switch, and then I would change my position a bit, and they'd go, that's great. But every day with Tommy was like that. He was an absolute treasure and one of the greatest musicians I've ever worked with. And when he did the Wrecking Crew, I tried to make as many of the screenings as I could and be involved with the Q&A because I love those guys so much. They mean it.
I was going to say, it's the determination and dedication, full dedication to what you're doing. Then every one of these people that have inspired us and have inspired you, that's why. You get in a room with these people and it's just mind-blowing how dedicated they are.
I can't play an instrument, or I don't write, I can't sing. But what these guys do is they never stop writing. They never stop playing. And over COVID, I watched these guys put out, 2 albums when they couldn't even be in a room together. And that's what a musician does. That's what a writer does. They don't stop. There's never stopping them. So I think that's your determination.
Well, I would have to say the Troubadour reunion tour that we did in 2010 with James and Carole, getting back together with them and doing that tour was just a highlight certainly of my life. I don't know about what anyone else is going to say.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
It's so hard, to say because also having toured with different artists, different genres and all that stuff, each one of them has really special moments to you. So it's really, that tour was really remarkable. But almost everyone, anytime you get a chance to walk out on stage and play for people, to me, that's the best tour at the moment. And And when we're gigging, you know, the gigs we're doing this coming weekend, every time I walk out on stage and I look around at these guys, and I think either, you know, I'm the luckiest person in the world, or I'm the luckiest person in the world. You know, it's just really, the immediate family was the greatest name we could have had for this band, because it really is.
The question was, is there anyone you guys dream of working with still? Or from the past?
I'm a huge Elton fan, and I've never had a chance to work with Elton. I would love to have worked with him, and also Russ got to work with him, but I was a huge Winwood fan and never had a chance to work with him. There's a lot of artists that I haven't had a chance to play with, but I never say never. You know, you never know.
Elvis.
Yeah, Bon Scott, Jimi Hendrix. There's quite a few, really, but we're so lucky to have worked with these incredible people we've met through these years.
I was trying to stick with live people.
I know you were. The dead are important. Not really. And Lee talks about it in the film. That, you know, we actually dig each other, and it's a remarkable thing for a band to get along as well as this one does. Danny and I will argue about song construction here and there, which thrills me that we care so passionately about the music we're working on that we'll be screaming at each other about something. And I went, you know how fucking great that is? That that's how much it means to us. So that's about the only arguments that exist in our little family here.
Fortunately, we didn't have to choose.
It was actually a real interesting period, because the management companies would talk to each other and they would organize things so that there was no conflicts, and which was really great. I mean, it kept us really busy. And then when we had the section together, we got to open for both of them too, so we were doing double duty on all these tours. But it was great to have the relationship with the management people that really would check with each other so that they could line these things up.
Oh, they're both great, really. They're both very different experiences, and they're both fabulous in different ways. What Leland said about playing live on stage, once you've played that note or played that song, it's gone. It's gone into the ether. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, the next song comes up, and that's what you got to think about. So it's very much in present time. Of course, in the studio, you can massage things and change them, or play them again, whatever. So they're very, very different situations, and both of them are wonderful in different ways.
Yeah.
So the question was, did you have a sense back in the 70s that it was, that you were making the magic that you were making?
I mean, and the other musicians too. Yeah. The community. Yeah.
It was an amazing time. I moved to Los Angeles in 1968, and I love the fact that the first person you met was Crosby, and the first person I met was Crosby. And it was an incredible time, because 2 days after I met David, he called me and said, "What would you think if I was to put a band together with Stephen Stills and Graham Nash?" I went, "You got to be kidding. What do I think? I think it's going to be the biggest act in the world. That's what I think for sure." You know, and then he had just produced Joni's record. Everything was happening. Jackson was there. Linda was there. It was an unbelievable time to be there. In the moment was the time to realize you were in something that was on fire.
The thing that's really weird, in 1968, there was a place called Devonshire Downs, and I went to see Jimi Hendrix there, and I was standing watching Jimi Hendrix, and I look at the guy next to me, and it was David Crosby. We're all connected to Crosby, you know. It's unbelievable. But it was an amazing time. I mean, I went to Cal State Northridge, and they said there's a concert going to be in the gym this afternoon, and I went to the gym, and it was Cream. You know, I mean, there was so much going on, especially the late 60s. The vitality and the energy in LA. There were so many clubs. There was a club called The Experience down on Sunset, and I'd go there, and Jimi Hendrix would be in there jamming. The Who would have played a concert. They would come and jam. I mean, every time you turned around, there was so much going on. And then, like what Cooch said, living in Laurel Canyon, and just the energy in the canyon of all the musicians. And there wasn't a pettiness or like coveting your thing. because you would go to people's houses and everybody would come and they'd hang, they'd share their music. You'd be in the studio once we started working in the studio. And like Graham and David might show up at a James Taylor session. Next thing you know, they're singing background on Mexico. You know, there was this community that really shared, and it was unlike anything I've ever seen since then. It was fabulous.
Since we're talking about David Crosby, to answer the question, the prevailing feeling that I had during that time, living, because I lived in Laurel Canyon as well, was that anything was possible, that you could do anything you could imagine. I mean, the kind of songwriting that people were, the songs that people were writing were just extraordinary. But I'll share one story with you. My band, Things to Come, was working up in Los Angeles at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and a friend of mine named Gary Burden, who was a great art director, called us up. We weren't making much money, and he said, "Listen, can you guys come up to David Crosby's house and pull some mud out from behind his house in Beverly Glen, because the rains had come down, and he's got to get this mud out of here." And so, you know, we needed some money, so we drove up there, and we spent all day, you know, shoveling this mud from behind his house. And this was an inspirational point for me. I remember looking up in the big picture window of him looking out at us toiling over his property. And David is standing butt naked with a joint in his hand, and two of the most beautiful women standing next to him, butt naked. And I looked up there and I said, "That's what I want to do." So it was inspiration. It was an inspirational time.
And on that note, we are out of time. We have to get out of here. No, we could talk to you guys forever. But thank you, Denny, for the wonderful
Can
film.
I just say
Sure.
thank you, guys, because if it wasn't for your festival, none of us would probably ever be seen. And it really
Thank you so
means a
much.
lot to all of the filmmakers. Like I said, please go to our website. Tell people it's immediatefamilyfilm.com. If you just look for immediate family, you'll get a therapist. But seriously, sign up. Like this young lady over there already has outtakes. You've loved the outtakes. So I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. So thank you, guys. Here's some postcards. Please tell your friends and family.
It's playing twice more. It's playing tomorrow and Thursday and online until the 27th.
Thank you.
Thank you.